Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July Tempo Community Call. Got a pretty good house today, so we're going to get rolling pretty quick. As always, if anyone has any questions or comments about any topic, feel free to raise a hand, put it in chat, say something, whatever it takes to get our attention. We also have an agenda. If you'd like to have a topic, feel free to add it there. And without further ado, let's go into the agenda and take a look at the first thing, which is, drumroll, Roslyn is a new maintainer of Tempo, which is incredibly exciting. Yeah, what a celebration.
He probably knows that we're announcing it, so he's not coming.
Yeah, he was meant to appear with a strawberry filter, but he chickened out, I guess. Yeah, I think he's been doing great work, especially on query correctness, I would like to highlight. And yeah, the next Tempo release is going to have a lot of bug fixes, especially on critical metric queries. Yeah, which is very nice.
Awesome. Moving on, I'm just working off the agenda here. Tempo 2.8.1 released. I think we have a bunch of notes. Not a lot there. About the fixed a hash collision bug. We actually did that one. Are they here?
I think no, Carlos nor Marty are here. But yeah, there was a. I'm Joeing today. So yes, this patch release has a single bug fix. There was a hash collision bug because we were using a 32-bit version of a hashing algorithm. I think it was the problem. There was only one customer user that saw this, so it seems to be pretty rare. But yeah, now it's fixed.
Awesome. All right, and then moving on, we had a long-standing bug with live traces. Mario, you might be the best person to know about it.
Yeah, very long-standing. I think as long as before the first major release of Tempo, so before Tempo V1, we tracked when this code was introduced, and it was like 2019. So yeah, essentially there is this concept of live traces in the ingester. A live trace is essentially a trace that has received a new batch of spans in the past few seconds, which is a configurable interval. And that has existed for as long as Tempo has existed, basically. And all this time, we thought we were respecting that interval, which was, its default was 10 seconds. So we thought that we were not cutting traces into the wall, into blocks, as long as they had received a new batch of spans in the past 10 seconds. That turned out not to be the case. We were actually flushing every 10 seconds because the silliest of bugs, instead of doing time before, we were doing time after. So every time, every trace fulfilled the condition to be flushed into the wall. So yeah, this is a very long-standing bug. I think the most immediate effect that this had was on data quality metrics. There are a few data quality metrics that indicate the percentage of traces that are complete, that they have the root span, that they're connected or disconnected, and live traces were meant to improve those types of traces. So there are less disconnected traces, less rootless traces. And yeah, we were not respecting that. So the percentage was of those quality metrics was a bit deceiving. And yeah, this has been a very surprising bug for us. Very, I don't know, like funny story, I think we'll be telling. We thought live traces existed in Tempo. We've been speaking about that for a very long time, and they actually didn't really exist. But so the main use case for live traces is that traces are contiguous. So reading them is more performant. And Tempo was performant without that improvement. So now we should see better performance when just inspecting traces, retrieving traces, basically, because it's now it should be a contiguous read instead of a fragmented read. Every like 10 seconds, there is a new flush to the wall, and traces were fragmented that way. So I think for most users, they should have a minor impact, just maybe better performance. But yeah, I wanted to highlight because I don't know, I thought it was I think it was funny how this bug has stayed in Tempo for like 4 or 5 years unnoticed.
Awesome.
And yeah.
All right. And I think that moves us probably into maybe our major topic, especially since I think we have who kind of sparked it, Pavel, with Rhythm, RF1, and Kafka. So I think you had asked in the community channel maybe a month ago, maybe a little bit longer, about alternatives to that. And so this may end up being the Mario show today, because I'm sure he has the most opinions about this. But if you want to speak up and kind of, Pavel, and kind of expound on this a little bit on what you're kind of wanting to do or ideas, this is a great time to discuss it.
Yeah, sure. And hi, everyone. I would like to discuss this maybe in a bit more detail. First of all, like, when do you plan to release the new architecture? And most importantly, if there is a chance we can keep the Kafka-less option, at least like a community effort. Maybe establish some APIs that will be able to plug in some alternative to Kafka, or something that will not require any additional third-party components to run Tempo, essentially.
Thanks for reaching out. So as for releasing the new architecture, we don't have a very strict date. We haven't committed to that. I think a reasonable estimate is the second half of this year. So sometime in Q3, Q4, we're targeting to do a major release with a new architecture. So we're continuously releasing new components and new like more developments to the new architecture, and it can be run actually part of it right now with 2.8 and 2.7 and 2.6. But with this major release, we intend on fully migrating basically to the new architecture. And as for supporting a Kafka-less version, so in Grafana Cloud, we mostly run Tempo distributed with microservices. I think we have very few installations of the single binaries, what we call it, just one process running the whole Tempo. So that's what we mostly focus on, but we know that the community, they mostly use, based on the stats that we have, they mostly use the single binary option. So we don't want to alienate the whole community and just kill that option, because we care about the community, is the introduction to Tempo basically, and actually very few people run the distributed mode. So the state of the new architecture, how it's designed right now, it's very tied to some Kafka concepts, and it uses the Kafka API. So it would be difficult for us right now to support anything besides something that's Kafka compatible. So we rely on things like partitions, topics, consumer groups, and none of these Kafka concepts are abstracted, basically. So what we're intending on doing is trying to find out what would be best for us is to support something that is Kafka compatible, basically. What we would be happy to commit to is to use a small surface of the whole Kafka API. We currently only use a few calls. We pull for records, we list offsets, and a few other calls. So the surface is, I think, quite limited, and implementing something that has that supports that, I think, is feasible. But that would be our preferred approach to it, essentially. And I think there are many ways forwards, from building something into Tempo, or having sort of like a Kafka simulator that runs with Tempo, depending, I think, on the requirements for this solution. If like the level of durability, persistence, high availability, depending on those requirements, I think the solution can vary a lot. I don't know what you had in mind in terms of that, if you would be okay with a in-memory solution, for example, or you're thinking more durable solution, like right into disk. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there will be definitely some trade-offs that we will need to make. At this point, I think what we are looking for is to understand what are the implications and if there is a willingness to make this work in the community. We probably need to spend a bit more time to understand the changes that are coming with the new architecture, and then take it from there, maybe build some proof of concept and see how it goes and what are the options and what will be the trade-offs to support such solution. And the Q2, I think, is coming pretty quickly, pretty much. And so maybe it would be helpful to have at least, I'm not sure how difficult it is to understand the changes, but if you had something that you could share, like a draft of docs or some design or something like that, that would help us to get started, and maybe then to consult if the approach is good or bad that we're taking.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have a ton of design docs, documents, diagrams of the new architecture. We haven't shared them, not because we want them to, we want to keep them private, but because it's easy for us to move when we don't put stuff out there prematurely. But yeah, we're happy to share the main changes, the new architecture, how it looks like. If you know Sigin, which is the new architecture or the name of the project of the new architecture for Mimir, that's a very good starting point because it's very similar, extremely similar, with some minor differences to be better adapted to Tempo, but the main concepts are the same. So you'll see distributors right into Kafka, and then there are a few components that consume from Kafka. That is all the same. So to get the basic concepts, I think looking into that Sigin documentation is, I think there is a blog post
Yeah. I was gonna
think it's a
share the
good
link
start.
to the blog post, Mario. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, I agree. We should, or like, I'm happy to share more information about these changes. So yeah, I'll chat with Kim, our docs person. She'll help me to make something readable and that is easy to consume.
Yeah, I
That's
think
super helpful.
Yeah, I think Mario, what we should call out also, like as Pablo mentioned, trade-off, right? Like also mentioned the benefit of the new architecture. So that make sure that we not only think about like the tooling that's involved to move over, but also the benefit, right? What will they be gaining from moving over? Yeah.
I raised my hand because I have a question for Pavel. Are you primarily looking at, is your primary concern for single binary mode or for distributed mode, replace like with Kafka? Because those have two very different states of the union, so to speak.
That's an excellent question. I think for both, but primarily the distributed mode.
Yeah, so that's a harder, that's a bigger hill to climb, it feels like. I think Mario may correct me, but that just feels a lot more effort. But I think maybe we can kind of, with these docs, put out why we're making it, and maybe that will help point towards something that's maybe a Go library off the shelf that maybe mimics it in a way that maybe not as resilient as Kafka, but gets us by.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks, Matt. Because I've always been assuming that this was mainly for single binary. I don't know why I assumed that.
Yeah, I had as an assumption, like when you started talking about the single mode, that this is something that you guys want to support without Kafka as well because of the community that uses it's used mostly outside Grafana Cloud.
Andre asked a question. How would the Kafka dependency work in single binary mode?
It would work the same as in distributed. You just need to point tempo to a Kafka compatible system, and it'll write and read from it. There is no difference. And single binary will work with Kafka from the start. It currently can work with Kafka. What I was referring to more was we want to make it work without Kafka as well, because the single binary is sort of the entry point to Tempo, and we want to maintain that experience as smooth as possible. If you have to run Kafka just to get started with Tempo, that can cause some friction, we think. But it's for distributed mode is also like very good question. Yeah, Sudhash, sorry.
So I have a question for Pavel. Are you thinking different queuing system for distributed mode? Like instead of Kafka, are you thinking about like other durable queues, or like a more generic abstraction instead of Kafka API?
We would like to avoid introducing another system in the deployment.
Okay, so like you are more interested in running Tempo without like one extra dependency that's a durable queue.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And do you know what rough requirements you would have in terms of availability, durability? Because that would have a major impact on the potential solution. Like it could
It's
be
hard to say, but yeah, there will be trade-offs. Like, but if we can keep things similar to the old architecture in terms of those aspects, that would be good for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Yeah, I think we need to share more information, and then we can discuss about trade-offs, because I think there are like many options, from a simple implementation of a memory queue in the distributor, for example, to something more more complex, like, I don't know, writing to disk or writing to object storage, and having something that mimics the Kafka API while writing to like disk or object storage. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I don't see an issue kind of around this topic in the Tempo repository, so I'll create one after the call and tag you, Pavel, and we can kind of start putting maybe the requirements and brainstorm there asynchronously and try to build up. And I think it'll also be a good jumping point to kind of be able to add docs or link to docs as a release on the here's why we made this choice, and then try to compare it with what would be an optimal both for distributed and single binary without a Kafka world. So that'll be an action item for me after this call.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So in preparation for the upcoming release and architecture change, we've been working a lot on the documentation structure. And we would love some input. So I'll post on the community forum what we're looking at doing. And if anybody would like to give feedback or ideas or suggestions, I would be very thankful to have that.
Can we expect Tempo 2.9 before the change to Kafka?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think at least one release. I would be shocked if we don't get to we get to 3.0 before 2.9 or even 2.10. Yeah, I think we're a couple of releases away. We haven't even completed the full re-architecture. There are some things that need changing. So we've introduced Kafka already into the Bright Path, but there's still work to introduce it in other components. In the old architecture was the injustice. So there's still work to do. So it's not imminent that we're migrating or releasing the new architecture. It'll take some quarters still for it to be official, basically.
We have a question from Robert Jacob. When's Tempo 3.0 and the change to Kafka scheduled? So we kind of answered that second half, maybe Kafka scheduled, but what about Tempo 3.0?
Yeah, I think right now, Joe and I are thinking the changes to Kafka will probably be in the 3.0 release. We haven't talked about a date yet, but like Mario was saying, definitely sometime the latter part of this year. So maybe late Q3, early Q4 is what we're targeting. But it also depends on the component that Mario mentioned, right? The read path component, when that is going to be finalized. So yeah, but roughly that's the timeline.
Yes, and also for you come in soon, both are the same thing, sort of. So we're introducing the new architecture bit by bit, and new components of the new architecture can already be found in previous minor versions of Tempo 2, like in 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. You can already run a version of the new architecture. But yeah, it won't be the official way of running Tempo until 3.0. While we have tempo 2 dot something. Will support both things. Classic tempo will be the official way of running tempo, and the new architecture will be slowly introduced, but always sort of like configurable, that you need to explicitly run it that way, essentially.
Well, thanks for answering that. So I'm aware that Loki is planning a similar change. I'm assuming that the same teams are working on this.
Surprisingly, no. I think so. There is a different team for each database, and we're working independently. I mean, we share information and we work together, but each team is working on each database independently. And I think all the new architectures are very similar because we were hitting the same problems because they were based on the same architecture, original architecture. All three databases and even the previous version of Periscope were based on Cortex, the metrics database. And they all have their shooters, ingesters, query frontends, queryers. And I think it got to a point in which all databases were hitting the same breaking point at the same time. And all investigating independently, we arrived to the same conclusion. And we surely influenced each other. But yeah, each team is working on the version of the new architecture.
So because I'm kind of asking this because the timeline for Loki seems to be a bit further into the future. They announced this, I think, 2 weeks ago for Loki 4, and then said it's about a week out, a year out. And so this gives a bit more time to prepare for that change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the Loki new architecture is way more ambitious than ours and contains more changes than we're aiming. We won't do major changes to the internals of Tempo besides this architectural change of introducing durable queue. But there aren't changes to, say, the block formats or using Parquet or the query engine. None of that is being changed. I believe some of that is significantly being changed in Loki.
Yeah,
I think
they
that's
have some
why
other changes as
they
well.
have a longer timeline. Yeah.
Okay.
But if for Tempo it feels very short timeline. I don't feel we want to leave the classic architecture behind very drastically. We're open to supporting. So we want to
Yeah,
have
I mean, the previous release will not immediately disappear with a new release.
exactly.
yeah.
So there are a couple of things. So for the people that want to migrate and can migrate to the new architecture, we will make a migration guide so everyone can migrate as smoothly as possible. We're doing it ourselves. We're migrating our cloud offering to the new architecture, so we'll have experience with that process. Although we're not sure how we're going to present it to open source, because we don't want it to be like a 20-step long process that takes a month to do. So there'll have to be a middle ground. So that's for the people that can and want to migrate to 3.0 to the new architecture, and for the people that can't or don't want to migrate, obviously the old versions, the 2 dot something versions will still be available, and we'll still patch them if they're critical bugs. And yeah, we also want to do as much as we can to support this Kafka-less versions and involve the community if there is a lot of interest, which it seems there is.
I mean, ideally, we have some kind of alternative solution up until the kind of 3.0 or 4.0 cut comes. 3.0 for Tempo and 4.0 for Loki. And then have the remaining time of the maintenance of the previous version to kind of roll this out to customers and so on. I would guess, yeah, it's probably still a year or even more than that to kind of make a decision on this. Finally.
I understand. Okay, yeah. Like I said, we want to support as many use cases as possible while keeping it maintainable. So yeah, there's different paths for the different needs of the Tempo uses, and we'll see how we can better support each of them.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this topic? All right. I think that runs us through our agenda. Does anyone have anything they would just like to bring up or ask or comment on? All right. If nothing else, then we appreciate everybody coming here. We had some great conversation and a few action items come out of this. So appreciate everybody showing up, and we will see you next month. Thank you all.
Thanks. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.